So now that Resident Evil 9 has been released and we've all had a chance to play it, we now all know what Elpis is. For a while, there was a bunch of speculation going around as to what it could be, many thinking that it was going to be the next virus in the series, but it actually turns out that Elpis is the antiviral agent against all progenitor-based viruses. So the T virus and all its variations, the G virus, the C virus, all of those, Elpis is the antiviral against them. And so with something like that now existing, the question I have is where will the series go moving forward? Because obviously if you have this antiviral agent that is basically the cure to all of these viruses, it renders any progenitor based virus kind of useless at this point because Elpis can just negate it. So where will the series go moving forward? I have a few theories as to where we could see things go moving forward, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video here. And to start off, I'm going to talk about the mold. I think it is possible that the mold makes a return and becomes the new overarching thing to replace viruses. However, there is one major problem with this, and it's that in both Resident Evil 7 and 8, both Megamyces were destroyed. And so those are gone now. And even in Shadows of Rose, the sample that Chris and his team had of mold was also destroyed. So now there's really nothing left of the mold as far as we know. But there are a couple ways that they could still bring mold back. For one, Rose exists. She's around. So maybe some organization captures Rose and extracts some of her blood and then uses that to create a new mold variation. So something like that could potentially happen, which I wouldn't really be against. I think that'd be kind of cool if they did something like that, to use Rose to bring back the mold. Another option, which I wouldn't be as in favor of, because I think it'd be kind of ridiculous at this point, is if they had another Megamyces conveniently be underground somewhere. Like we're going back to Raccoon City, and it turns out the clock tower, the reason Capcom hasn't used it yet is because beneath the clock tower, there was actually a whole Megamyces hive the whole time. And so we got another one, but like I said, I wouldn't really like that because it's like, you can't keep having Megamyces hives just conveniently for the plot arrive somewhere. I like the idea of using Rose if they want to bring back the mold over some conveniently placed Megamyces hive, because that would just become repetitive. So that's one option, right? The mold could make a return. Another possibility would be bring back Plaga, because Plaga has had a huge impact within Resident Evil. Because for one, you had the Umbrella artificial Plaga that they kind of created with the NEA type that they used in the Nemesis project that was based around Lost Plagas. So you could have that. And then you also had Plaga from Resident Evil 4 and 5, where in Resident Evil 4 we had the Type 1 standard Plaga, and then in Resident Evil 5 we had Types 2 and 3 introduced. So maybe Plaga makes a return and we have maybe a Type 4 show up. Maybe we get a Type 5, Type 6, so on. And so something like that could happen where Plaga just becomes the new thing replacing viruses. So that would be interesting, because I did like the Plaga throughout the series. I thought those were always kind of cool, especially in 4. Love the original Plaga from that game. That was just a really neat shake-up in the series, because up until that point it was pretty much all viruses, and then Lost Plaga shows up and it was a really cool change-up in the series. So I wouldn't be against the idea of having Lost Plagas make a return. And something else that I just thought of is that we don't actually know what happened to the amber sample that Ada Wong took in Resident Evil 4 Remake, because I've made a few videos about this before, where in the remake version of Resident Evil 4, Ada does not work for another organization. She only worked for Wesker, and then at the last moment decided to betray him. So we don't know what actually happened to the amber sample once she took off with it. So maybe it resurfaces, and that's how Lost Plagas gets reintroduced into the series. Maybe the amber gets used by somebody and they develop the most powerful version of Lost Plagas that we've yet to see, and that sort of is what causes Plaga to sort of take over as the new thing within Resident Evil, replacing progenitor viruses. So that's something to kind of keep our eye on, is that maybe that amber sample resurfaces once more, and that's how we get Plaga reintroduced into the series. Now, another possibility that I'm thinking, and maybe this is the most likely scenario, is we simply have a new progenitor based virus created. And the way I could see them doing this is that some organization, more than likely the Connections, gets their hands on a sample of Elpis and then uses it to engineer a virus that is immune to the antiviral properties of Elpis. And I think the Connections is the most likely to do this because the Connections is kind of being built up to be the replacement of Umbrella, because Umbrella has fallen at this point. All of their former employees are dead, and now the Connections are kind of coming in as that new organization that we have to look to take down. So I could definitely see them being the organization to do this. And even at the end of Resident Evil 9, we see 2 agents who work for the Connections show up where Leon defeated Victor Gideon, and they grab something. We don't see what it is, but after they get it, they say they need to leave before the Hound Wolf squad arrives. Maybe what they gathered was the severed head of Zeno, and they're going to extract a sample of his blood, because after all, he did inject himself with Elpis, to which he immediately loses his powers. So it had to have coursed through his body rather quickly for that to happen. So maybe they get a sample of his blood and they extract Elpis from that, engineer a brand new virus that becomes the new progenitor virus that's immune to the antiviral properties of Elpis, and then we get new viruses from this brand new virus. And just like how Umbrella codenamed their viruses with letters, maybe the Connections does their own thing, like using colors. So you'll have like the green virus or something like that. Or they'll codename them after Greek gods or whatever. But they could do that, and we have a whole brand new lineup of viruses replacing the T virus, the G, C, all of that with whatever the Connections cooks up. And it becomes a whole new thing under the Connections. So I think something like this would be really cool. And I feel like this is the most likely because I just can't see viruses going away in the franchise. They're too iconic. They're a huge staple to Resident Evil. So I can't just see us completely moving away from them. So I think this is the most likely. But another possibility that I could see is that we simply don't get rid of progenitor viruses. Things like the T, the G, the C, all of that still remains. These bioterrorists still continue to create them. And it just becomes a power dynamic between the good guys using Elpis to combat against the terrorists, creating progenitor-based viruses. And so it becomes a back and forth power struggle rather than we just completely get rid of any progenitor-based virus moving forward. Maybe it becomes a power struggle situation. And if that's the case, I think that would be really fascinating to see. But those are sort of my ideas as to what I could see this franchise doing moving forward now that something like Elpis exists. But what are your thoughts? Do you agree with any of these thoughts that I have here? Do you think they could go in another direction? Like maybe they introduce bacteria or something else? Maybe like they go really out there and like they find like an alien meteor and extract that and it becomes like a whole new thing. Like who knows? Where do you think this franchise is going to go now that Elpis is the ultimate antiviral agent to progenitor-based viruses? I would love to know your thoughts in the comments. With that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video here, and I will see you all on the next one. See you then.